Hey YouTube, this is Marcus again with another video. Today I think I'm just going to do a sort of video blog of some projects I'm working on. Spring's coming, it's supposed to be up to like 75 degrees today, and it's February the 20th, I do believe it is. And I was watching a video by Farpoint Farms guy here. He commented on one of my videos asking about if I have my CB radio set back up, and then I watched a couple of his videos. And so I just thought I would record some video footage around the house here, because between the snow and the ice and just being busy with work and other things, I haven't taken the time really to record anything around the house. I've uploaded a few video game related videos and some voiceovers, but I haven't done any videos about the status of the house because honestly with the cold weather we haven't done a whole lot, or if we have done stuff outside, it's been soppy and wet, and I just didn't feel like trying to lug a camera around while I was doing those projects. So anyway, since this all started with a question I received about my CB radios, I thought I would go ahead and start out by showing you my current workbench here. I need to dust it, but I got two tables that are identical. They've got little drawers under them here. I got these at Walmart for $75. And I zip tied two of them together to make myself one big long bench. I'm actually in the bedroom here. We've got, you know, a whole space back here with a bed and stuff. But this gives me a decent little place for most of my man stuff. And so I'll go ahead and give you guys a rundown of what's here. Here's my Cobra 148 GTL, the same CB radio that I've been using, well, since I got into CB radios, because it works good. It's got AM, single sideband. It's got a lot of features right here on the faceplate. I have had to replace the light in the meter a couple of times. I'm still using a Cobra HG M75 power microphone, but I actually had to order a new one because in the process of moving I just tossed my old one into a box and some stuff landed on it and busted it, and I just went ahead and ordered a new one. The new ones actually, by the way, use surface mount transistors instead of the little three-leg through-hole style. So I took it apart to check it out when I got it and noticed that the capacitors and some other components are still through-hole, but they are moving to surface mount as well, and it does have a little bit of a different sound. Still sounds, still a good sounding microphone, but you know, maybe it's foretelling of things to come. CB radios are moving to surface mount technology. I've got my external speaker here. I've got my handheld Cobra 38 because my old Midland, I forget what model it was. I had a Midland handheld, and I took it under the house one day at the old house to do something under the floor, and I was using it to communicate with my wife, and it just got covered in mud and water and died. Down here is my little 7 amp peak 13.8 volts DC power supply, a 12 volt battery for backup so that if the power goes out I can run the radio directly off this battery, because it's more efficient than running the radio off this power supply from my ups. I've got a microphone tester here that all I've used it for is the 4-pin, but it's got all sorts of different microphone connectors that I can use to wire up microphones for people, and it has its own little built-in speaker so you can check and make sure that everything's wired properly. It's got little pins here on the side for testing noise toys, things of that nature. This is actually a little 2-meter radio that I am going to see about programming for one of our local rescue squad guys. I've programmed radios for a few guys on you know, local rescue squads, school bus drivers, things of that nature. And he got this one and he wants me to see if I can program this for him, and if I can get it working, they're thinking about ordering a few of these to serve as sort of backups. So there's that, and then over here is my gaming corner. This is where my gaming PC is. I've got a 1500 volt amps uninterruptible power supply down here that all of this, including these lights, is ran through, so that if the power goes, none of this stuff will shut off when the power goes out. This will keep this entire table running here for about 30 minutes with no electricity coming into the house, and that gives me time to finish what I'm doing on my computer, shut it down gracefully, migrate the CB radio over to the battery, and then once it's just these lights, it'll power just these LED lights for about 4 or 5 hours with no electricity coming into the house. And even if the electricity comes back on right away, the ups keeps those flickers, those surges and brownouts, that on-off. It keeps all of that nasty electricity out of my valuable electronics here, because there's been a time or two, you know, we live in the head of a holler, trees fall on lines, people crash into phone poles, things of that nature. I woke up one morning because I heard the relays kick in the ups here, which told me there was a problem, but when my lights were still on in the house, and so I checked it, and we only had like 70 some odd volts AC incoming, and it stayed like that for about 30 seconds or so before the power actually went completely off to the whole house. And so it keeps all that nastiness out of the stuff that I paid money for. So what I'm going to work on doing today, I'll take you guys outside, I'll show you where my antenna's at, some thoughts, because I don't have a police scanner yet. I had a handheld police scanner, but it just does not work inside the house. I don't know if the 120 volts AC running through the walls has created a sort of Faraday cage or an RF choke. I don't know what the deal is, but after we got electricity put into this house, radio reception inside the house sucks. When there was no power to the house, I could walk around with my little portable AM/FM stereo and listen to things just fine. And when the power got turned on, it killed it. So I'm going to have to use an external antenna with my police scanner and things of that nature. And I'd like to get a nice base station police scanner anyway, and maybe set it right here and get that all squared away so that I can, I've actually got a Magoffin County, Kentucky severe weather page that I created. Mainly I created it a few years back when we had one day got down to negative 25 degrees and we had like 2.5 feet of snow, which was like completely unheard of for this region. And I made that Facebook page, and since I'm a school bus driver, I've used it to post about school closings, because I usually get called and notified before everybody else does. And the other day I realized, holy crap, there's like thousands of people that monitor and see the posts that I make on this weather page. And so while I don't want to make it a full-time thing, in addition to just keeping informed myself, a good police scanner with an antenna would allow me to collect information that might be relevant to the public and share it on that severe weather page. So that's something I'm going to look into probably with our tax return. I'm just going to drop some money on a good antenna setup, a good base station scanner, and get that stuff taken care of. But anyway, let me get my boots on and get out here and get organized, and I'll show you guys some things that are going on outside with the antenna and for the CB radio here, my plans for the police scanner antenna, and some other projects we're working on.
There's the vicious man-eaters here. Man-eating dogs. So here is, let me see, here's the front of the house here. Alright, and then here is my CB antenna. I thought about running it way up on the hill, because this hill is cut off in flats because my grandfather farmed a lot of this years and years back. So what'll happen is you'll go up and you kind of see there's a little crest right there, and it'll flatten out. And it's not like perfectly level, but it's flatter, you know, than this. And there's 2 or 3 of them. I think there's 3, and the third one is right below the ridge line. And I thought about going up there and putting it, but to get there I'd have to run about 800 feet of coax, and especially with a barefoot, you know, 4-watt CB radio that peaks at 12 watts on single sideband, I think that I would lose more in that much coax than I'm losing by having my antenna down here. But basically what I did, I'm zoomed out here, but I don't know how much you guys can see. I just basically picked the spot over here next to the road because it's the closest to the center of this valley, and just reused the old mast I had at the house. This one's actually a 12-foot 4x4 at the moment, instead of the 16-footer. But the same sort of setup. I actually concreted this one because I did have a problem at the old place with it flexing in the ground. So I did actually concrete this one, so I don't have that problem now. It stayed pretty well exactly where I put it. But the 16-footer that I had, I don't know if it's because I left it out for a day or two before I actually put it up, but the 16-footer bowed really bad. And so I had to intentionally lean the pole a little bit to compensate for that and keep the antenna vertical. And I think that was part of the reason I had a problem with it wanting to tilt and lean really bad because it was always trying to, you know, the 4x4 itself was not straight. So I just grabbed the 12-footer that this one did have our TV antennas on it at the old place, but I tried my TV antennas here, and the TV stations are generally in that direction, the ones I was trying to pick up, that are about 30 miles ish away, but we can't get a good line of sight signal here. This valley's too narrow, I guess, for us to get a good signal. I even put I tried just hooking it up to a software spectrum analyzer, ran it into a spectrum analyzer on my PC, and you could see bumps when we would get it lined up properly, but it was not enough for the televisions to actually pick it up and decode it where we could watch television. So the television's out here. So anyway, here's my CB antenna. I do alright, actually. That direction up the holler is Johnson County. I've talked to people 20 plus miles away that direction, no problem. I can talk down the holler toward Royalton and things. It's another little town that's literally like a gas station and a post office. I can talk to people there just fine. Going this direction, I have trouble. Now, my wife can be out in her mobile, driving around town. I can talk to her just fine, but she is a lot weaker than she was at the old place, and that's generally speaking, that rule kind of generally applies to everybody. The people that I used to talk to in Salyersville, that's this direction, they're a lot weaker than they used to be, but I can still talk to them. And the weird thing is, it seems like the farther away they are in this direction, the better it seems to come in. I mean, the more distant people are not louder than the closer people, but there seems to be a point where it kind of cuts off because you're too close to these mountains, and then the people that have some distance between them and these mountains actually come in. And the same applies for this direction. You know, Prestonsburg is generally this direction. When my wife first turns out of the holler and turns that direction, she pretty well instantly cuts out for a few miles until she gets some distance between us, and then when she gets some distance between us, she actually comes back in, and I can talk to her pretty well all the way to the next town 20 or so miles away, and her in a barefoot mobile setup. So one thing I realized was that I didn't exactly explain, for those of you who may not have seen my older videos, how I put this together. And so I'll go ahead and show you guys how it's put together here. Basically, it's a budget-friendly way to get your antenna up in the air. I've got an 18-foot Antron, 10 feet of conduit, and a 12-foot 4x4. All totaled and said, the highest point of that antenna should be about 38 feet in the air, because you got to think, even though it's 10 and 12, you've got a 1 foot overlap, and then you've got another 1 foot overlap where the antenna connects here. So if I'm thinking correctly, the highest point of that antenna should be about 38 feet high. And basically what I've got here is a 4x4 by 12 foot beam, and then at the base here I've actually got another 4x4 in the ground about 2.5 to 3 feet, with a door hinge connecting the two, and it's concreted or cemented, whatever you want to call it. And then I've got two flat brackets here on the side that pin it in the upright position, so there's 2 screws in each one. And then there's another flat bracket over here with 4 more screws. You see, here's my LMR 400 coax with the wire loom on it. And then I've got these fence posts that I found at True Value, sunk them in the ground so that the blade's beneath the surface. But these have these little holes in them all down the length of them. And what I've found those to be useful for is, once you've got your beam erected, you put these on opposing sides. This one stops movement this direction. This one over here stops movement this direction. And what I found was that, let's say that the pole was leaning a little bit this direction and you needed to push it back this way to straighten it and get it level. When you screw this fence post in, if you angle the screw downward, it will pull the fence post into the side of it and push the pole back this direction. Whereas the opposite is also true. If you need to pull the pole this direction to straighten it up, you can angle the screw upward and it'll pull the pole to the fence post. And I actually used that not only to secure it and stop lateral movement, but also to help get it straight. And so I've got 2 fence posts here. It hasn't budged since I put it up. I've got a homemade hinge plate to where if I need to lay the antenna down and work on it, I back out the top 2 screws on either side. I back out the screw in the top of each fence post, and then I can lay this whole assembly down in the yard here by myself. And this door hinge with the cemented base plate keeps the bottom end from kicking up with me. And then, oh, it's on this side, is where you can see I've got a board screwed into the side of the 4x4, 1 foot down, and then I've got 2 U-brackets connecting the conduit to the 4x4. The purpose of that board is to stop the conduit from sliding down through the U-bracket, so it keeps it at that level. And then at the top end of that 10 feet of conduit is the Antron. And you can see here is my LMR 400 coaxial cable. I've actually got some wire loom around it right here so I can weed eat around it here, and if I happen to brush it with the weed eater, it won't hurt my coax. It's buried not deep, just a couple inches right here. I just kind of took a hand trowel and dug to 3 or 4 inches deep and buried it up and under the underpinning here, where you can see that for now at least I've just kind of got it tossed back in here. I just made sure that we didn't have any small circles smaller than 12 inches in diameter, so I didn't accidentally make an RF choke out of my own coax. But I need to get under there, because what I'd like to do is zip tie it up off the ground to the steel frame of the house itself. Now, I am planning on putting a grounding rod on this. It is not required electrically for an Antron to have a grounding rod, because it is internally grounded in terms of functionality. What I want to do is probably get me an 8-foot copper plated rod, and I'll just drive it straight sideways into the side of this hill here, and run me some 4 or 6 gauge copper wire up to the bottom end of this conduit, and screw it in with a sheet metal screw, or a self-tapping screw, and cover the connecting points with some dielectric grease to help keep moisture off of them. And hopefully, the idea is, if this gets struck by lightning, it'll still blow my radio all to pieces. But hopefully, if it does get struck by lightning, it'll see that grounding rod as a shorter path to earth and keep most of the energy from the lightning strike out here, instead of allowing it to come inside the house. So, like I said, it's a budget-friendly, effective way to get your antenna up in the air. Is it as good as a tower? No. But it's something that I can manage by myself. I can lay it down, work on it, and if there is a problem, it's very easy to work on and fix. I've got a tower laying over here, but I don't think I would get a lot more height out of it, because when they took it down, the original owners, they cut it at the top of ground level, and it also needs some work. Some water got in it and froze and busted some of the pipes, so it needs to be sandblasted, painted, have some damage repaired on it. And even then, I'll have to lay it out and measure it and see how much I've got, because I may not even gain anything over what I've already got here. But that is how the CB radio antenna is stood up here. Now, what I'm thinking about doing for my scanner antenna is, the scanner is going to run in about the 2 meter range, and a half wave at 2 meters is 3 feet. And so a quarter wave would be 1.5 feet. And so, whereas this half wave for 27 megahertz is 18 feet-ish, a 3 foot half wave steel whip for 2 meters is a lot easier to manage. I don't want to drill holes in the siding or the eaves or the roof, because once you make a hole, it's always there. You've always got to worry about moisture entry where you don't want it happening, because especially on the roof, by the time you actually see water leaking into your house, you've got damage. Your insulation's packed in, you've got mold. That's a lot more headache than it's worth. So I don't want to drill holes. But I also, for a 3 foot antenna, I don't see why I should need to do something like this to get it up in the air and support it, especially when I'm not transmitting, I'm just receiving and listening. That wind's blowing it pretty good there. That is bugging the daylights out of me. I'm going to have to get up there and fix that. I mounted it just a little bit crooked, and I didn't realize it until I got it erected, and I didn't want to take it back down and be messing with it, because I'd already poured the concrete and I wanted to give that a chance to dry, and I just haven't taken the chance to correct it yet. But anyway, For the scanner antenna, what I'm thinking about doing, I've seen these little tripod bases that people just set on the roof of their house. I'm thinking about just doing something like that. Getting a little tripod that will sit on top of the roof, maybe weigh it down with some sandbags or something so the wind doesn't blow it over. And call it a day. We've got a pretty decent local Radio Shack that carries radio equipment. I've got coax and connectors and things of that nature. But I'll check there. I'll check AmericanRadioSupply.com, DX Engineering, Radio Shack's website, Amazon. It just depends on what I can find for a decent deal. But that's generally the plan for the scanner antenna. Is I don't think I'll worry about doing like a concreted mast in the ground for something that I'm not even going to be transmitting on. You know, so if it's not in the absolute perfect optimal location, that's fine, because we've got repeaters for the emergency services that I'm going to be listening to, so their signals are going to be strong enough that just having an antenna of any kind outside the house is going to be good enough. So see about getting me a little 2-meter antenna, stick it on a tripod on the roof, weigh it down with some sandbags, and call it a day. So I've actually recorded quite a bit of footage. I have a feeling that if I recorded an hour of me doing other projects around the house today, people would probably get bored, because today I'm going to try to get up here with a chainsaw and cut the limbs off this beech tree, because it's getting springtime, it's getting warm. That beech tree would make good forest fire fuel, and right next to a vinyl sided house, I don't want that laying up there. So I'm going to finish cutting that up. I cut it down late last summer, and then the weather just got terrible, and I didn't feel like trying to climb these slimy rocks with mud and snow and things. So I'm going to try to cut that up. But hopefully, Mr. Farpoint Farms. So that is what's going on with the radios. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, or suggestions, please feel free to post them in the comment section below. Oh, check that out. Right there. Is he in the frame? There he is. I love living out here. Makes it a little bit more difficult to work with radios, but I just love living out here. But this is Marcus out. Y'all take care. Have a good.
Hey guys, I just wanted to add this quick caveat to the end of this video. For those of you who are not aware, YouTube has actually updated its policies regarding the requirements for keeping your channels monetized. And there's a few friends of mine who put work into some videos on their YouTube channels, but they have not yet met the new thresholds that YouTube has put out. And if they don't meet those thresholds by a certain date, I think it's within the next month, they're actually going to have their channels demonetized, and they're not going to be able to make money from those videos anymore. One of those friends is Wesley Cole. He's got a channel called the F Series that mostly centers around working on these old body style pickup trucks. He's got an old, I believe it's a 91 Ford F-150 with the straight 6 in it. And he's got a lot of videos doing various things to that pickup truck. He's actually a member of a group called the OBS Brotherhood that is just guys who love those old body style Ford pickup trucks. He goes to car shows and things of that nature. And he's also got some videos on there of doing some target practicing with various guns and things of that nature. So if any of that sounds interesting to you guys, please go check out his channel. The link is going to be in the description, and here's a screenshot of his channel you can see here. And if there's anything on his channel that you guys like, give him a subscription. It would really help him out and help him continue to get compensated for the work that he does put into creating these videos. So I just wanted to bring some attention to this particular guy's channel, who is about to lose the string of revenue that he is currently receiving from YouTube due to some policy changes. Appreciate it, guys. Y'all take care. Have a good one.